Hi, everybody in Psych 267, Forensic Psychology. This is Scott Silberman, your instructor, and I want to introduce you to the very first recording that goes along with a chapter for this class. I think you're really going to like it. I really hope you give it a chance and have a good attitude because this is fun if you have the right attitude and it's interesting. There are some things we need to get through first, though, before we really get to the interesting stuff. So this is what the front of your reading packet looks like. You see that it's the 3rd edition available at our bookstore. Do you like the Google images I picked there? I do. You see my name and the college, and I'm the psychology faculty. There's the introductory page and the table of contents, all the things that we're going to be covering this semester. So let's get started. Section 1, Forensic Psychology. Here's what you need to know. The word forensic comes from the Latin forensis, meaning of the public forum. No, I'm not going to read to you every single word, I promise, but this is a good place to start. Public information, or in other words, court information. And yes, your court information is public. Anybody who has any dealings with the court, it becomes public information. So that's where the word forensic comes from. A lot of people think it means serial killers and prisons and things like that. Yeah, that's part of it, but there is so much more to psychologists working in the court system. So, 3rd paragraph here. Before we address what psychologists do who work in a forensic capacity, it's important to note that there is not a license that says you are a forensic psychologist. Any licensed psychologist who works in the court system one way or another can say that he or she is a forensic psychologist. It's that simple. Maybe one day there will be a specific license for it or a specific PhD that you have to have, but not right now. So, there are 2 boards that say that you've been educated in forensic psychology, passed their tests, met their requirements, but those are certificates only. You don't need one of those to say you're a forensic psychologist. In fact, I consider myself a forensic psychologist because I'm licensed to practice psychology in Arizona, and I work for the juvenile court, and I have worked in other capacities. So, what you typically need, this is the 2nd to bottom paragraph here, is a doctorate in psychology. The most common type, right here, a PhD. But other people get the PSYD, Doctor of Psychology, where you do more internships and you don't do as much research typically. An EDD, Doctor of Education in Psychology, that's less common. The most common one is the PhD. It's the most well-known. Now, got sidetracked there. What you need to know is psychologists and medical doctors, believe it or not, have the same number of years of education. I don't know if you ever thought about that or if it's something that you ever really gave much thought to or considered, but it is true. So, you will have 11 years, this is skipping down a little bit here, 3rd paragraph of the 2nd page, of education, assuming that your bachelor's degree is a 4-year degree. I know it takes people a lot longer than that at times, but it's considered a 4-year degree. So for psychologists, you then get a 2-year master's degree, 3 years of your PhD, you have to do pre-doctoral hours for a year and postdoctoral hours for a year, and all the while you have to write a dissertation. So 11 years or more of college. Same thing with a medical doctor. 4 years for your bachelor's degree, 4 years of medical school, 3 years of a residency, if you're a non-surgeon medical doctor, that is. So you can see how this works. It's the same number of years of education to get a license in psychology or a license in psychiatry. What's the difference? Well, psychiatrists typically prescribe medicine. Not all of them. Some do assessments or therapy, but that's usually what they do. And in all honesty, you can see a lot more patients in the course of a day if you're a psychiatrist. Psychologists usually work by the hour doing therapy or doing evaluations. So that is the similarities and the differences. The number of years and the hours you need to get your license. 2,000 hours in a year you have to work, and then your postdoctorate, that's what psychologists have to do. So, usually, psychologists practice in a few different areas, but forensics is a growing area. There's a lot of work that has to be done with the courts, and it's increasingly being seen as something that is needed. Most people do it part-time, and they have a variety or various things they do as a psychologist, and only some of them are court-related, but there are plenty of full-time court psychologists too. So, where do they work? This is the last paragraph here, page 2, last paragraph of this section. They can play a variety of roles, work in a lot of different areas, adults and juveniles, child custody, evaluations or counseling. Usually it's evaluations, however. Divorce and custody proceedings. Not everybody that has kids is married, of course, so therefore when they split up, they don't necessarily get divorced. Civil, non-criminal cases, like accident injury cases. Working for police departments, that's another area where you would be working with the law or in a legal setting. There is all kinds of things. Social Security, drug testing for government employees. So it's not all as exciting as like finding serial killers and things like that, like people think it is. So this is just a brief introduction to what is forensic psychology, and you will also be, while you're following along in the reading packet, that's what the exams are over, you will also be doing work in the book, John Douglas' book about profiling. You've probably heard of that, criminal profiling. And his book is required for this class. Both of these are inexpensive, by the way, compared to other things that you buy for other classes. We sell that at our bookstore, or you can get that online. So you definitely want to be starting with that to keep up with Canvas assignments. But you want to be keeping up with the weekly reading for this too. Psych 267, Forensic Psychology Reading Packet, edition number 3. So that is it for the first video.